This is just one snapshot of so-called speedrunners, including a man dressed like Jesus stampeding right through security at a Scientology building on Hollywood Boulevard.
Let's go!
Screaming as they sprint into the organization's notoriously clandestine halls.
Well, let's go in.
Others taking a more subtle approach, even signing in, looking for access.
Hi. Oh no, let me do that real quick.
Or apparent content for social media videos that are suddenly everywhere. They're calling it speedrunning Scientology.
Get out!
Inspired by video game slang, here the players are not just confronting guards, but unlocking maps of the buildings. Former Scientologist turned critic Leah Remini slamming the efforts as failing to highlight anything substantive.
It feels like it's about clicks, and it's turning something serious into content, and in doing so, it completely loses the point.
Their purpose isn't entirely clear, and some participants appear to be teenagers. One creator credited with beginning the trend, known only as Swiley, telling The Hollywood Reporter, "I didn't do this whatsoever to come out against them or anything. I do not condone what I did, even though I didn't break any laws." With a Scientology spokesperson telling NBC News, these are peaceful spaces. Turning them into targets for viral stunts is not journalism, protest, or civic activity. It is trespass, harassment, and disruption of religious facilities. The spokesperson adding they're taking protective security measures and reporting the incidents to police. After a recent incident last weekend, the LA Times reporting that the LAPD's Major Crimes Division has been tasked with investigating it as an alleged hate crime.
Get out! Just get out! Thank you! Go! Get out! Go!
As Remini has cautionary words for the content creators and their legal exposure.
This trend creates chaos. It creates a spectacle. And worst of all, it hands Scientology exactly what they want, the ability to position themselves as the victim.
So, yeah, we are talking about private property here. Sam Brock joins us. I mean, what is the criminal investigation showing?
So we reached out to the LAPD. They have not responded to us yet. You look at these videos and you see people clearly forcing their way onto private property, right? Is that a crime? LAPD says to NBC LA that they are investigating right now at least 2 people from this incident this past Saturday, both for vandalism and robbery, that no one is in custody at this point. But they also said that they're beefing up their patrols, Tom, around that area off of Hollywood Boulevard and are monitoring this ongoing trend. At this point, it should be very clear to anyone in the region that there are individuals trying to break into these several buildings. As far as additional security measures that the church itself had talked about, they wouldn't specify, but they did apparently, according to video and reporting that we've seen, take the door handles off of the main entrance. So if someone wants to try to come by and slam their way through, you no longer can at least open the door.
There's so many people in there, it's going to get dangerous and something's eventually going to happen.
A literal stampede, as you saw.
Okay, Sam, great to have you here. Thank you.
Welcome back, family. Today, we're revisiting a topic that has taken a more serious and frankly more concerning turn. If you've been on TikTok lately, you may have seen what's now being called the Scientology Speedrun. But this isn't just curiosity anymore. It's not just people asking questions or documenting their experiences. This version of the trend involves large groups of individuals attempting to force their way into buildings associated with the Church of Scientology with the intention of exposing what's inside, recording, streaming, and sharing it in real time. And that changes the conversation entirely. Here's what we're actually seeing, and I want us to be clear about what's happening. Groups are gathering, phones are recording, doors are being tested, sometimes pushed, sometimes pressured, and the goal? To get in, capture footage, and reveal what is typically private within the church's facilities. Now, regardless of one's personal views about the Church of Scientology or any religious movement, this behavior raises serious ethical, legal, and spiritual questions. Because what we're seeing is not just curiosity, it's confrontation. Let me say this plainly. This is not just about Scientology. This is about how we treat sacred spaces in a digital age. Because today it's Scientology. Tomorrow it could be a church, a mosque, a synagogue, or a temple. And the question becomes, do we still recognize boundaries when it comes to faith? There are three critical thoughts and things that I want you all to take away inside of today's conversation. Let's slow this down and think deeply. The first consideration is when curiosity crosses into violation. There's a difference between seeking understanding and forcing access. Curiosity asks, can I learn? Can I visit? Can I understand? But what we're seeing in this trend is something different. It says, I'm going to get in whether I'm invited or not. And that's where curiosity becomes violation. Every religious tradition has some form of sacred space, places set apart for worship, reflection, or internal practice. When we disregard those boundaries, we're not just challenging an institution. No, we are undermining the very idea of sacredness itself. Then, number two, there is the illusion of exposure. Now, let's talk about this idea of exposing the truth. There's a long history of investigative journalism and accountability work when it comes to religious organizations. And that work matters. But what we're seeing here is not structured investigation. It's crowdsourced intrusion. And here's the issue. Not everything hidden is harmful, and not everything revealed is understood. Walking into a space uninvited, recording fragments, and posting them online does not automatically produce truth. In many cases, it produces confusion, misinterpretation, and spectacle. So the question becomes, are we actually uncovering truth, or are we just consuming moments? The last thing I want you to consider is this notion of digital courage versus real-world consequences. Social media has a way of making people feel bold. There's a camera, there's an audience, there's the promise of virality. But what happens when digital boldness enters physical space? Actions have consequences, legal consequences, safety risk, escalation of conflict. And beyond that, there's a deeper concern. What happens to our moral compass when everything becomes content? Because when the goal is views, it becomes easy to justify behavior we might otherwise question. I want to bring this into a spiritual lens. As someone who has spent years walking with people through life, loss, and meaning, I want to offer this perspective. Sacred spaces are not just buildings. They are containers for belief, for identity, for people's deepest convictions. And whether you agree with those beliefs or not, there is something profoundly human about the need for a place that feels set apart. When we turn those spaces into targets for content, we risk losing something bigger than the moment. We risk losing our respect for the sacred altogether. There has to be a necessary balance. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying that religious institutions should be beyond question. Accountability matters. Transparency matters. But how we pursue those things matter just as much. There's a difference between inquiry and intrusion, accountability and antagonism, awareness and exploitation. And if we don't learn to tell the difference, we will continue to blur lines that should not be blurred. So let me leave you with this. In a world where everything can be recorded, shared, and exposed, what responsibility do we carry when we approach what others consider sacred? Not just legally, not just socially, but spiritually. Thank you for joining me at my desk today. I'm Dr. Dandridge. I want to hear your thoughts. Where do you draw the line between curiosity and respect? And how should we engage religious spaces in an age of viral content? Let's continue this conversation. Until next time, I want y'all to stay thoughtful, stay grounded, and above all, stay discerning. Peace and blessings.